The sun hung low, casting long shadows over Lakeview's quiet streets. Kids played, neighbors chatted, and life moved in its slow, predictable rhythm until that moment. Sam Harper was inside his house, sipping coffee, eyes on his son, Jack, who was trying to fix his bicycle. The peaceful morning felt like just another day, until the sudden scream tore through the air. It wasn't a siren or a distant siren. It was the screech of tires, sharp and violent, ripping through the neighborhood's calm. Sam's eyes snapped up. His stomach clenched as he saw it, the black pickup truck barreling down the street, flashing fake HOA decals, its red and blue lights flickering like a cheap carnival show. The engine roared, and the truck skidded onto the sidewalk, tires bouncing over the curb. Sam's heart hammered. He knew those men. They weren't real officers. They were impostors, thugs hiding behind a badge, enforcing their own twisted rules. Led by Billy Jenkins, a disgraced ex-SEAL turned rogue enforcer, these men had turned Lakeview into their playground of terror. He saw her before he could stop himself. A young boy, no older than 10, trying to get out of the way, clutching his backpack to his chest. The truck's bumper clipped his leg. He was flung sideways, crashing into a mailbox. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Sam's breath caught, and then it happened. The truck's front bumper, its battered, poorly painted badge, hit something else, Emma, his daughter. 6 years old, riding her bright pink bike with tassels fluttering, her helmet crooked, her face lit with joy. Just moments before, she'd been laughing, trying to pedal faster, proud of her new bike. Sam's world froze. The truck didn't slow. It drove straight ahead, crushing her tiny bike and sending her sprawling across the pavement. The wheels rolled over her legs. There was a sickening crunch, like the sound of a nightmare come to life. Sam was already moving, but he was too far. His voice was lost in the chaos. He reached her as the truck skidded to a halt a few yards ahead, engine growling like a beast. Emma lay still, her small body twisted unnaturally, her helmet knocked off, her face pale in the dying sunlight. Her legs, once so full of life and laughter, were broken, sprawled at impossible angles. Sam dropped to his knees, trembling, clutching her fragile body. His hands were clammy, his vision blurred. He pressed his palm against her chest, felt nothing but cold and stillness. Terror gripped him tighter than any enemy's hold. His mind screamed, "This can't be real, not Emma, not her." Behind him, the impostors shouted more orders, their voices distorted through megaphones. They barked commands about immediate compliance, moving off the sidewalks as if nothing had happened. Their words felt like knives stabbing into his soul. They didn't care about her. They cared only about maintaining control, about covering their tracks. Neighbors stared, frozen in shock. Someone let out a raw scream. Others dropped to their knees, clutching their heads. Time seemed to stutter, the peaceful morning broken into a nightmare. Sam's fists clenched, rage boiled. Within him, hot and unforgiving, every muscle in his body hummed with the urge to strike, to rip apart the lies and cowardice that allowed this to happen. But he held back. He had fought wars, seen enemies with real guns and real stakes. This was worse. This was betrayal. He wrapped Emma in his arms, tears threatening to spill but held back. His mind raced. The fake officers, the truck, Billy Jenkins, these weren't random criminals. They had a plan, a sick game, and Emma was just another pawn. The imposters didn't. Stop. They moved down the street, shoving residents back into their homes, trying to restore their false authority. Sam watched, seething, as they ignored the girl bleeding on the pavement, ignoring the truth that they had crossed a line no one should ever cross. He looked at Emma's face, peaceful now but fragile in a way that made his stomach turn. Her small chest rose and fell faintly, life flickering like a candle about to go out. Sam's fists clenched tighter. This was no accident. It was cold, calculated terror, and he knew. They had to pay. But not yet. Not with words or laws. This was a war, one that would take more than a court order. It would take him. The sirens wailed in the distance, a reminder that help might come but maybe too late. Sam's mind sharpened, eyes narrowing as he reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone, quickly snapping pictures of the truck. The fake badges, the faces of the men who had turned his peaceful neighborhood into a battlefield. He felt the weight of the moment. The line had been crossed, and once crossed, there was no going back. The dust settled in the battered lot as Sam Harper stared at the wreckage he'd left behind. Billy Jenkins and his two accomplices sprawled on the cracked asphalt, their faces bruised, their bravado shattered. The bat in his hand was still loose, but his grip was steady. Every breath he took was measured, slow, controlled. No shouting, no rage, yet just cold, relentless focus. Billy's eyes fluttered open, blood dripping from his nose, his face twisted. In shock and pain, he tried to speak, but Sam cut him off with a glare. The other two men remained silent, trembling, their faces pale. The power was clear. They had made a mistake stepping into Sam's world. Sam knelt, tightening the makeshift binds he'd put on Billy's wrists, using his belt, the only thing close at hand. The cold metal against his palms felt like justice. His mind raced for what to do next. There was no time to wait for the police. They'd be here soon, but that might be too late. He pulled out his phone, quickly snapping photos of the scene, the battered truck, the broken headlight, Billy's face, the torn badges, the humiliation. He knew these images would speak louder than words. They'd be their proof, their warning. Suddenly, a distant siren wailed, a low, mournful cry that seemed to echo his own fury. The sound grew louder, faster. Sam looked up, eyes narrowing. Help was coming, but not fast enough. Not fast enough to save Emma or stop the nightmare from spiraling further out of control. Billy's accomplices tried to scramble away, but Sam's voice was like steel. "Don't move." His words were calm but firm, leaving no room for doubts. "You're done running." A moment of silence hung thick between them. Then Billy managed a cracked, bloody smile. "You think this is over?" Sam's jaw clenched. "It is now." He stood, towering over them, the weight of his decisions settling like a storm cloud. He turned his back on the scene, on the wrecked truck, on the broken lives, and started walking away. But his mind was already racing ahead, planning the next move. He knew these men, knew their game. They'd come back, or worse, disappear into the shadows. And he'd be waiting. He had one last thing to do. Before the police arrived, before the town woke up to the nightmare. He pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. It was a photo, the glint of Billy's smirk, the stolen badge, the lies they had worn like armor. With a sharp motion, he placed it on the hood of the truck, then turned toward the horizon. His heart hammered, but his face was calm. He wasn't done. Not yet. Behind him, the sirens grew louder, closing in, but Sam Harper knew the truth now. This wasn't just about the wreckage or the cowardice. It was about who stood tall when everything else fell apart. And he was just getting started. Sam's fists clenched tighter as he watched the last of the impostors stumble to their feet, blood dripping from their battered faces. The battered truck groaned, half crushed under the weight of his rage. The metal twisted beyond recognition. The fake officers, the fake badges, they looked like shadows now, broken and defeated. Sam's voice was low, deadly calm. "This ends now." He took a step forward, the bat hanging loosely at his side, but every muscle was coiled ready. The air thickened with silence, broken only by the distant wail of sirens rushing closer. The impostors backed away, eyes wide with fear. They knew they'd crossed a line, one they could never come back from. Billy Jenkins, bloodied but defiant, spat on the ground. "You think you've won? You're just a father with a bat. You don't know what you're messing with." Sam's gaze flicked coldly to him. "You don't know what I've already lost." His voice was a whisper, but carried the weight of a thunderclap. "You took my daughter, turned our world into hell, but I'm not just here to fight you, I'm here to end this." In a flash, Sam closed the distance. The bat swung in a perfect arc, striking the hood of the truck with a sickening crunch. The D. Metal caved under the force, sparks flying, a piece of the vehicle falling apart like a toy. The others tried to run, but Sam was faster. With a swift motion, he grabbed Billy's arm, yanked him back, and slammed him against the wreckage. Billy's eyes rolled, blood streaking across his face. "You don't understand," he rasped. "This isn't just about us. It's bigger." Sam's heart pounded harder. the pieces falling into place. The fake officers weren't just rogue thugs, they were part of something darker, something corrupt. He looked around, catching glimpses of hidden cameras, wires, and a strange device in Billy's pocket. Then the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. Billy Jenkins wasn't acting alone. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Far off, sirens blared, but they weren't coming to help. They were a distraction. The real threat was behind him all along. A low hum vibrated through the air as a black drone hovered overhead, its camera lens zooming closer. Sam's eyes widened. This wasn't just a rogue operation. It was a setup, an orchestrated attack on his family, on his town, and in that moment, the world shifted. Billy, bloodied and defeated, smirked through his pain. "You think you can stop this? You think the police will save your daughter? No one's coming. They're all in on it." Sam stared at him, realizing the terrifying truth. This was bigger than him, bigger than Emma. This was a web of lies spun deep into the heart of Lakeview, a conspiracy that reached into every corner of their lives. He looked up at the drone, its camera flashing in the dying sunlight. It wasn't just recording, it was broadcasting. To whom, he didn't need to ask. The answer was in the silence that followed, the silence of a town watching with bated breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Then, with a sudden burst of clarity, Sam knew. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. He turned away from Billy, who was now coughing blood. His grip tightened on the bat. He stared at the horizon, at the distant flashing lights. The truth was out. And once you knew it, there was no going back. He whispered one last thing to himself, a vow that echoed in the hollow space of his chest. "This is not just revenge. It's redemption, and I will burn every lie to the ground before this ends." And as the first shot of dawn broke over Lakeview, Sam Harper stepped into the darkness, knowing he was now the hunted, and that his fight was far from over. Because sometimes evil wears a familiar face. Sometimes it wears a badge, and sometimes the hero has to become the monster to finally bring the darkness into the light.